Man, I'm so glad that you guys are here. Today we are beginning our second week and our final week of our 2-week series called Helping the Next Gen Win. And last week we kind of talked about this premise that if we're going to help the next gen win, we have to win ourselves. If you've ever been led by someone who is not, an adequate leader, it doesn't go very well, does it, right? Have you ever had a boss and truly, not because of your pride, but truly you should probably have their job, they're actually not being a good leader to you? Because the reality is, if we are going to lead the next generation, we first have to lead ourselves, okay? And so if we're going to help the next gen win, we have to help ourselves win, and we have to help our peers win. And so before we look to the next generation, we need to look to our generation. Well, when I was growing up, I wasn't always sure what I wanted to be when I would grow up. And there was a lot of things that kind of went around in my head. The very first thing I wanted to be was a baseball player. Now, again, I'm not from St. Louis originally, and so I didn't want to play for the Cards, but I wanted to play for the Tribe, for the Indians. And I wanted to be a shortstop. This is like the days of Omar Vizquel, if you guys know who that is. He's got tons of golden gloves. He's, just an incredible player. And I wanted to be a shortstop. And what I realized is this, that this body was not built for baseball, okay? It just wasn't, all right? Beyond that, it was definitely not built to be a shortstop in the major leagues, okay? I wasn't even a good enough player to play in high school. So anyway, that dream, quickly vanished. My next dream, though, and actually a dream that stayed for a long time, was to be a marine biologist. I love the ocean, and on my honeymoon, we go to sign up for daily things you can do at this place, and I signed us up for snorkeling every day, and my wife was like, that's not gonna happen. I'm not snorkeling every day. And she's like, you can go by yourself. I'm like, it's a couples resort. I'm not gonna be the weirdo over here snorkeling by myself, And she's like, well, I'm not doing that. So we compromised, and I think we went once. So anyway, so I wanted to be a marine biologist, though. I love all that, right? Well, anyway, there was this gray area where I wasn't sure what I wanted to be. And I remember in 8th grade in Ohio, all 8th graders have to take something called an aptitude test. And I don't know if this is a nationwide thing. I don't know if other states do this. But basically what they do is they take your GPA, which, by the way, I had a 3.8 something. They take your GPA, they take your interests, your hobbies, all your accolades, all these things, and then you take this survey type test. And they put it all into this big machine and out pumps your results, right? And whatever it is that, they believe that you should be. And so I remember taking this test and I was like, man, this is exciting. And I put so much just weight on this test thing. And I'm like, what is it that my teachers in the system really believe I should be? So I go ahead and I take this test, and you have to wait 2 weeks for the results to come back. They literally get sent off. At the time, they got sent off to some testing center. Again, they went in the machine, right? And out pops your results. So we finally get our results. I remember being big time anticipation. I was so excited. And I walk into our library. Now, our library was kind of dark. We had these really big lights, but we didn't really have any overhead lighting. And so it was kind of dark in some places, but we had these big open windows, rather. And I walked in, I sat down at these hard wooden chairs, light brown, and these big round 400-pound table, And I sat down, and all of a sudden the results are getting passed out. And because my classmates are probably a little quicker than me, they start rifling through the results, and they're exclaiming out the results, right? Veterinarian, yeah, veterinarian, that's awesome. Computer technician, oh, okay, I can make some money doing that. Great, awesome, yeah. Teacher, okay, cool, yeah. Lawyer, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be so rich, entree, and they had to translate entrepreneur, and they're like, oh yeah, I could be. What is that? And they're business owner. Oh, okay, So all my classmates are getting all the results. And I'm still looking, I can't find it. I had to raise my hand, ask for help, and they're like, it's right there. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I look at it, and to this day, I remember reading it. Garbage truck driver. Yeah, yes. Oh my gosh. Garbage truck driver, your friendly neighborhood garbage man, And, listen, there's nothing wrong with being a garbage truck driver. I love our garbage truck drivers, and I have some friends that have really good relationships with their garbage truck drivers. And it's good, hard, honest work. But it doesn't take much skill, you know what I mean? It's really weird that it was on the aptitude test. Like, it's kind of like day laborer in some sense. And I was like, it doesn't take a whole lot of skill. So anyway, I read this, and I start thinking to myself, like, man, my classmates, they're getting, like, votes of confidence to heal Fido, you know? Like, your dog's sick, like, bring him to the veterinarian, you know? They're getting votes of confidence to set up, the computer system of the next generation and change the world, right? The way that we've communicated for 500 years now has shifted because of computers and the internet. They're getting the vote of confidence to mold the minds of the next generation as a teacher, or to settle really big disputes in court, and or to be the next Steve Jobs or whatever, IBM and Apple and Google, and then I'm like given the vote of confidence to dispose of your 4-day-old chicken that was been rotting in the sun, you know? And what I realized at that point was that an entire system, set of teachers, an entire system didn't really believe that much in me. And it really, really, really like hit me hard. I said, man, I don't know what I'm going to be. I don't know. And what I started to do is in my soul, in my spirit, I started to surrender things to the Lord. If you don't know this about my story, at this point in my life, I was all in for Jesus. And I've never looked back. But I'm so glad I was all in for Jesus before something like that happened in my life, because I don't know what it would have done for me. But I do know that I was going, you know what, God, whatever it is you want me to do, like, I am going to do it. Fast forward a couple months later, I'm sitting in my student ministry. I'm in middle school. This guy, Rich Fitzsimmons, he was my student pastor. And I was, being my normal self. I was cutting up and acting a fool, making everybody laugh. Got the superlative for class clown, And so I'm making everybody laugh. And after our student ministry, he comes up to me and he says, Corey, let me talk to you for a second. Pulls me aside. He's kind of angry. But he was calm and collected. And he said, Corey, you are a leader. And everybody in that room just looked to you. For your entire life, you have the opportunity to lead people toward Jesus or away from Jesus. Tonight, you led them away from Jesus. And I just hope you make a better decision in the future. Whew, man. Like, it, again, crushed me, but not in a bad way. It was one of these, like, pivotal conversations in my life that I still look back on, and I go, you know what? Today I'm going to decide to lead people to Jesus. Not away from Jesus, but to Jesus. It was a pivotal moment in my life. Okay, my freshman year comes around, and then my student pastor, it's a new student pastor, a high school student pastor. His name is Scott Price. And Scott Price leads me all through high school, and he starts to say things to me like, you are a leader, like you are good at communication, at public speaking. You are, good at this, you're good at that, blah, blah, blah. You know a lot about the Bible, okay? So then he starts asking me questions. Hey, would you lead a small group? Would you close us in prayer? Hey, Corey, would you speak in a month from now? And as he started asking me these questions, he was giving me responsibility. He was trusting me with the future of the church. In a small way, he was trusting me with the future of the church. And it was through that I realized exactly what God was calling me to be. And it was my freshman year, truly, that I decided I wanted to be a student pastor. I went through high school, I graduated, I went to a university, got a degree in student ministry, and then I became a student pastor for 5 years. That's why I went into student ministry. Because the Lord worked through all of these moments in my life, and these people, they decided to influence me. They looked through who I was on the surface, and they saw the gemstones inside of me, the things that were glistening, the things that were priceless and valuable. And they decided to see something in me, call those things out in me, and to help me win. They were helping the next gen win. That's what they were doing. But they pursued me, they went after me, and they influenced me. So my question to you is, who did that for you? Who influenced you? Who's the person that pursued you? Who's the person that didn't let you act a fool, but in a loving and respectful way, they called you out. They brought you back to where you needed to be. They helped mold your future days. And because of them, because of the conversations that you had with those people, you're a different person today than you were then. Who's that person for you? Now, here's the other thing. I fully understand this. I recognize that there are people in this room who never had those conversations. There are people in this room that didn't grow up with spiritual influences as parents. They didn't grow up with spiritual influences through student pastors or through teachers or through friends, parents, or friends. And there might really truly, like when I share stories like that, there might really truly be like a mourning on the inside of you. Like, I wish I had that, but here's the reality. You can play the victim and say, I wish I had that, but I didn't, or you can make a change. One of my favorite quotes comes from one of my favorite leaders. He says, you can make an excuse, or you can make a change, but you can't make both, or a difference, but you can't make both. You can make an excuse, or you can make a difference, but you can't make both. And so if you're at a place right now tonight where you're like, man, like, I don't resonate with that story. I wish I had that story. That's okay. Make a change. Make a difference. You don't have to be that person, and you can be the person that you needed when you were younger. Another quote that I love, be the person that you needed when you were younger. So who did you need when you were younger? Maybe they weren't there for you. And so can you be that for the next generation? Throughout this series, last week and this week, we're talking about that, helping the next gen win. And if we're going to help the next gen win, whether we have that story or not, whether we have someone who invested in us or not, be the person you needed when you were younger. Well, today we're going to be looking at Jesus and how he invested in the next generation. But remember, before we get there, the next gen is the generation that is after you. Last week, if you missed it, you can go back and check it out. But we went through all of these generations. And as you look at these, really we're starting with the baby boomers in our congregation. And so if you're a baby boomer, the next gen is not Gen Z. Your next gen is Gen X. If you're a Gen Xer, then your next gen is Gen Y, the millennials. And if you're a millennial, your next gen is Gen Z, all right? And so the next gen is the generation that comes after you. And Jesus, he invested in the next generation. I don't know if you know this or not, but out of the people that he led and he spent the majority of his time with, the majority of those were around 12 to 25-ish years old, okay? And so, I mean, they were younger than him. If you don't know, Jesus started his ministry when he was 30 years old, okay? So the majority of people that he spent his time with were in their teenage and early 20 years. And I've learned this. I've learned this through just being a student pastor and just years as an adult, that if you want to climb a ladder, if you want to climb a societal or a social or a corporate ladder, what do? You hang out with people that are older than you, 9 times out of 10. You do, 9 times out of 10. If you want to climb that ladder, you hang out with someone who has more experience than you, more money than you, more social clout than you, more everything, right? And those people are older. If you want to climb a corporate ladder or a social ladder or a socioeconomic ladder, you don't hang out with people younger than you. You just don't. It doesn't happen. I mean, rarely even do you really hang out with your peers. I'm dead serious about that. I've seen it enough. If people want to climb ladders, those are cultural ladders, they hang out with people that are older than them. If you want to hang out with people that are younger than you, if you want to invest in the next gen, if you want to help the next gen win, you're not getting anything in return. Not immediately. There is nothing you will get. There's nothing that they can give you immediately. Nothing. And so it drives me wild when in our culture, often adults would say things like, I don't know why our culture is the way it is. I don't know, like, where are we going? Why are these 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds, why are they acting the way they are? Well, how many hours have you spent with them? How often have you taken them out for coffee? Right? How often have you taken them out for breakfast? How have you helped the next gen win? See, the crazy thing about Jesus is he wasn't interested in climbing any ladders. He didn't care about ladders. They didn't even exist in his life. He was only interested in seeing the future of the church grow healthier. And so he invested in the next generation. One of my favorite quotes, it's not going to be on the screen, but one of my favorite quotes, it's a Greek proverb. It talks about wisdom, and it talks about how wisdom is planting shade trees under whose shade you will never sit. It's planting shade trees under whose shade you're never going to sit under that shade tree. Why? Because shade trees take 40, 50, 60 years to mature. And when you're getting coffee with the next gen, when you're taking them out for breakfast, when you're investing in them, you're helping the next gen win, you're planting a shade tree under whose shade you may never sit. And so we're going to look at Jesus. Jesus was so invested in the next generation. And most of us have read the Great Commission, and so we're going to be going to Matthew chapter 28. Matthew chapter 28, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to read it in reverse for 2 reasons. One, because I love to begin with the end in mind, okay? I love to look at where we're going first. And two, I think the majority of y'all have read this 100 times over and you're tired of it, okay? And so the temptation is to just zip on through it, all right? So we're actually going to begin towards the end, and we're going to go backwards and go to the beginning of it. But we're going to go to Matthew chapter 28. Okay, before we jump into this, in Acts chapter 2, this crazy thing happens. What happens is thousands of people come to faith in a single day. Like thousands of people are added to the roster of heaven in a single day. It's like the invite list, just, it got bigger and bigger and bigger. Like everybody's coming to heaven, party's gonna be great, okay? Like 3,000 people in a single day. And then the weeks that follow that, several more thousands of people say yes to following Jesus. Now, this is incredible. The church is exploding. But why is the church exploding? Is it because Jesus preached? Nah, he's gone, okay? Like he's in heaven, ascended, right? Okay. Is it because like people saw Jesus rise from the grave and ascend into heaven? No, because the majority of people that saw all this and decided to follow, the majority of people that decided to follow Jesus never saw this. They're not townies, they're out of towners. They're coming in for the Pentecost celebration, so they have no clue what just happened, like, a month before, or days before, or weeks before, whatever. They have no clue what happened. So why is the church exploding? It's because Jesus entrusted the future of the church with the next generation. They took it seriously, and the rest is history. It exploded. It grew. Okay, so how does he entrust them with the next generation? How does he entrust them? How does he help them win? He unleashed an entire generation. How does he do that? Matthew chapter 28, verse 20, the very end of the Great Commission, the very last words of Matthew, of the book of Matthew, it says this, "And be sure of this, I am with you always, even to the end of the age." How do we help the next gen win? Presence. We're with them. We're going to be present with them. Presence. That's how we're going to help the next gen win. We're going to be with them. Now, I love how Jesus ends this here in Matthew chapter 28, because he also begins his ministry this way. Before he was ever born, there's a prophecy about Jesus. It's in the very beginning of Matthew. Right now we're reading Matthew 28, the end of Matthew. We're going to go back to the beginning of Matthew, and we're going to read exactly what Matthew chapter 1 says in this prophecy. In verse 23, it says this, "Look, the virgin will conceive a child. She will give birth to a son." This is before Jesus is born. This is like Christmas prophecy, right? Angels coming down, they're giving words, they're prophesying. It says, "And they will call him Emmanuel," which means God is with us. God is with us. That's how he begins his ministry. God is with us. Jesus is named Emmanuel. What does Emmanuel mean? It means presence. It means he's with you. It means he's with you in the valleys, he's with you on the mountains, but he's with you in the valleys. He's present with you. That's what it means. It means that he's with you. So we're going to be present. If we're going to help the next gen win, we have to be present. If you're a teacher, a coach, a parent, aunt, uncle, a grandparent, a business owner, you have to be present with them. And so what does your schedule look like? If it doesn't include the next gen, why not? If it doesn't include the next generation, then why not? All right, going backwards a little bit more, Matthew chapter 28, we're going to start in verse 19. Jesus says, "Make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Teach these new disciples to obey all the commands that I have given you." Okay, so how do we help the next gen win? What's step 2? We make disciples. That's it, we make disciples. Very simple. Now, Jesus did this. We need to do it as well. I think the problem, though, often is when it comes to us hanging out with the next gen, we often help them in these ways. Hey, I'm going to help you with stock market prices, okay, or stock market tips. Hey, I'm going to help you become the best salesman you can be. Hey, I'm going to help you be a good moral mother, a good moral father. Hey, I'm going to help you with your real estate, okay? And those are all good things. Like, we need to help the next gen with those things. But at the end of the day, there's more important things in life. The next generation needs to hear that there are absolute rights and there are absolute wrongs. Serious. That there's an arbiter of truth. That there's a person who decides what is wrong and what is right. Because that's been lost. And then they need to understand this. Okay, so there's an arbiter of truth. Who is that? It's the creator of the universe. So someone created the universe? Yes. And guess what? The creator, he loves you deeply. They need to hear this, right? And that creator, he has a plan for your life, right? Like Jill was talking about John 10:10, the thief comes to rob, kill, and destroy. And Jesus says that I have come to give life and to give it abundantly. Like, hey, the creator comes to give you an abundant life, a full life. You need to hear this. And then what's crazy is the creator sent his son. And then the son, he died on the cross. He left the tomb empty. And we believe this because there's evidence to prove it. Now let me tell you why it even matters for your life. That's what they need to hear. We're not making disciples for the stock market. We're not making disciples for real estate. We're making disciples for Jesus. And there's a difference between helping the next gen win in all the areas of life, but then losing in the area of Jesus. And so we have to make sure that we're making disciples. We're not just making rational, good, healthy, well-rounded adults. Matthew chapter 28, verse 19, he says, therefore, go. Therefore, go. How do we help the next gen win? We pursue them. That's it. We pursue them. Jesus calls us to pursue the next generation. Now, there are porch sitters, right? Stoop perchers, right? People that just perch, they just hang out. And those people, especially when it comes to social moments, they perch, they just sit and hang out because they think they're the prize. Like, why wouldn't everybody want to come and hang out with me? I'm so awesome, right? Like, they are the perchers. But Jesus doesn't call us to be perchers. He calls us to be pursuers because Jesus didn't perch for us, right? Like, now, don't get me wrong. Jesus is the prize, but he didn't sit up in heaven and perch and wait until we got there. No. He pursued us because he knew this. There's no way we would ever make it to him if he didn't first come and pursue us. There's no way that any of us in here, not one of you, is good enough, holy enough, righteous enough to ever make it to heaven without first Jesus coming down here and dying on the cross for your sins. And so he didn't perch, he didn't wait, he didn't chill up in heaven, but he came and he pursued. He went after you, he went after me, and it caused him to leave heaven, come to earth, be born as a baby, live a sinless life, then be murdered, and he decided to do all of that for us. He didn't perch, he pursued. And we're called to do the same, to be pursuers, not purchasers. I think the value of something is shown by what someone is willing to go through in order to pursue it. And Jesus went through all that for you. And so if Jesus modeled it, we are going to mimic it. We're going to be pursuers. But the next thing is this, that we know that we're worth it because Jesus went through it. Any of you ever had a day in the last 30 days if you wondered if you're valuable enough? Can we just be honest and vulnerable and raise our hand? I'm going to put my hand up first. We can all put, okay, that's right. The rest of you, you're just liars, all right? Like, we all get to this point in our life. And we're like, man, am I worth it? Like, am I valuable enough? Like, I think I'm doing everything right. I'm working so hard. Or I screwed up so badly. Like, there's no way. But here's the thing. We know we're worth it because Jesus went through it. You're the valuable thing that Jesus waded through all the craziness, the muck of this world to save you. We know we're worth it because Jesus went through it. His cross brought him, or his choice brought him to the cross. He's not a percher, he's a pursuer. So, what are we going to do for the next gen? We're going to pursue them. We're not going to perch and wait. We're going to go after them. We're going to pursue them. So maybe the question is, how do I do that? You know, how do I do that? That's a good question. Well, Jill talked about it. Your next opportunity to not be a percher, but be a pursuer is on October 3rd. And we're going to be meeting here at 4 p.m. at Destiny, and we're going to have a Young Life Interest meeting. And I want you there. And I think here's the deal. I think a lot of excuses immediately come up, and they're not always necessarily excuses. Sometimes they're legitimate. But I don't want you to decide if they are legitimate. I'm serious on that. I think for many of us, we might go, you know what? I just don't have enough time for that. Like, I don't have enough time. Well, maybe. But maybe the exact times that you're free are the exact times that they need you. Or, maybe you're like, hey, I just don't think I'm cool enough for that. You know what I learned? Let me just tell you this. I learned this in student ministry. The best adults who connect with teenagers are not the cool ones. Actually, 9 times out of 10, they're the ones that are short-lived, and the first time that they get their feelings hurt because they're no longer Mr. or Mrs. Cool, they leave. Serious. You know the ones who stick it out and they're awesome? The really like awkward, dorky, nerdy type of like, man, like, I don't know what I have to offer, but I'm here. You know, like I'm gonna be humble and willing, and I'm gonna love these students. One of my best leaders I ever had was this guy. His name is Brad Gilbert, and Brad is in his late 50s, and he's just like a fun, awkward dude. And he's like super fun around these kids, and he's a little awkward, and they love it, and they loved him. And so don't be like, hey, I don't think I'm cool enough. No, it's okay. You might become the best leader that Young Life has ever seen. I don't know what your thing is, but whatever the excuse is, leave it at the door and just listen to what they have to say. Come sit by me. I'm going to save you a seat. Come sit by me. Because I think if we are going to help the next gen win, we have to prioritize them. What does your schedule say? What does your calendar say? What does your bank account say? If we look at our bank statements and our calendars, and there's nothing in there that has ever been allocated to the next generation, then I think we're missing the mark. So are you going to go? Are you going to go? Keith Green, I love this quote. It's one of my favorite quotes. He says, Jesus commands us to go. It should be the exception if we stay. And we just read it, right? The Great Commission. He commands us to go. Jesus didn't say, therefore, stay. And don't leave. Be a percher. Become the prize. People will come to you, and then the church will grow. That's not what Jesus said. He said, therefore, go. Make disciples. Teach them everything. Baptize them. All this stuff. And hey, guys, by the way, like the way I started this thing is the way I'm ending it. I'm with you. I'm never leaving you. I'm here, right next to you. I'm with you. You're not going to fail because I'm right there with you. And so we need to remember that, not forget it, okay? And let me say this. Even if you can't volunteer through Young Life, like you're for sure you can't, go to the meeting if you can make it. Because what I've learned is this. If you guys have a really annoying insurance agent friend, they exist, right? And so like they always want what? They want referrals. Hey, I want 10 referrals, 10 people. Can you connect me with 10 people? What I love is in the kingdom of God, when people come to meetings and they're like hanging out and they're like, this isn't for me. But you know what? This is for my friend Ashley. Like Ashley would crush it at this. And Ashley's looking for something in her life. Ashley needs to do this. That's not a bad thing, and that's not a bad recommendation. Often that's the Holy Spirit really working in that, okay? So come and listen, all right? But, let me tell you this. Let me just wrap up by saying this. At Redemption, we're not perchers. We don't just sit and perch. This past week, this weekend, Friday, we had a block party, and that was amazing. And then yesterday we had another block party. That was amazing. I'll just tell you, I'm exhausted, okay? It's a good exhaustion, I love in Scripture where Jesus is talking. He says, come to me, all ye who are weary and heavy laden. I will give rest for your weary souls, right? But he says, give rest for your what? Your weary souls. He doesn't say your weary bodies. We're not promised rest for our bodies on this earth. Even though my body is tired, my soul is refreshed and rejuvenated. I'm excited. So Friday we had a block party. Saturday we had a block party. And then this upcoming Saturday we have Hands on Kirkwood, okay? So go ahead. If you have not heard about Hands on Kirkwood, sign up, register. The best way for you to do this is just on your Connect card. You can go ahead and say that you want to sign up for this. It's going to be from 9 to noon, and we're going to be doing yard work. And so I will be there. Right now, Redemption Community Church has one person volunteered, one person signed up. That's me. But we're gonna register. We're gonna get there. And so anyway, we had a busy week because we don't perch. We're not sitting around and waiting for things to happen. We're not the prize. Jesus is the prize. And we're going to go pursue people and tell people about the prize. It's not us. It's Jesus. And so every turn here at Redemption, if you're like, man, Redemption is a lot of things outside the church. Yeah. Because every time that we do something inside the church as a big event, it's saying that we are the prize. But we are not the prize. Jesus is the prize. And we want to take people to the prize, right? And so you pursue what you value. You pursue what you value. if you value people, you will pursue them. If you value the next generation, you will pursue them. If you don't, then you will purge, right? If you don't, then you will purge. And the question is this: if you believe that the next generation is valuable, what will you sacrifice for them? When I was in high school, I got a job, and I was spinning pizzas and saucing pizzas, right? I worked at this place called Sam's Pizza, and but I got this job because there were things in my life that I believed were valuable, and when we believe that things are valuable in our life, we sacrifice for them. And so if you remember when you were in school, maybe you wanted to buy a PlayStation or a new cool pair of jeans or a new bike or a new car or whatever it was, you weren't out on Friday night with your friends. You were what? You were saucing pizzas. You were flipping burgers. You were moving boxes. You were working. Why? Because you were going to sacrifice for something that you believed was valuable. And so if we believe that the next gen is valuable, what are we doing to sacrifice for them? How are we sacrificing for them? Ask yourself that question. And the question that we have to ask is this: how much is the next gen worth? How much are they worth? But the problem with that question, the problem with the question of how much is the next gen worth, is it really is a rabbit hole, a wormhole type of question. It takes us into, like the dark corners of outer space, into a big old thing of reason and philosophy, like how much is the next gen worth? But the question really has to be answered before that is, how much is the future of the church worth? Because you're not it. You're not the future of the church. You're the present of the church, and one day you'll be the past of the church. But you're not the future. And so when we're all in our caskets, who will be taking this thing forward? And when you're in your casket, the business and the house and the cars and all these other things, they don't matter anymore. The only thing that matters is that is eternal. And so our question is, how much is the future of the church worth? And once we decide how much the future of the church is worth, once we decide that the future of the church is priceless, that the future of the church is highly, extremely valuable, so valuable that Jesus gave his life for it, it's priceless, then we can decide how much the next gen is worth. In Philippians chapter 2, we're going to read this. I think sometimes we don't get to the words of Jesus or the life of Jesus. We talk around Jesus, but we don't look at his sacrifice, the things he's gone through. And we're going to read in Philippians chapter 2, we're going to look at his attitude. Chapter 2, verse 1, it says, "Is there any encouragement from belonging to Christ? Any comfort from his love? Any fellowship together in the Spirit? Are your hearts tender and compassionate? Then make me truly happy by," get this, "agreeing wholeheartedly with each other, loving one another, and working together with one mind and purpose." Remember week 1, I said, hey, we don't want any frustration between generations. We want to agree together. We want to work together. We want to be loving with one another, okay? All right, don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble. Thinking of others is better than yourselves. Don't look out only for your own interests, but take an interest in the others too. Hey, if you want to help the next gen win, don't just think about your generation, but look out for them. You must have the same attitude that Jesus Christ had. Though he was God, he did not think of equality with God as something to cling to. Instead, he gave up his divine privileges. He took the humble position of a slave and was born as a human being. When he appeared in human form, aka he wasn't perching, he's pursuing, he humbled himself in obedience to God, and he did what? He died a criminal's death on a cross. He left heaven in pursuit of us. He wanted to help the next gen win. He wanted to help the church grow, and he did that by what? By sacrificing himself. He was present. He made disciples while he was on this earth, and he came to us. There's nothing that Jesus preached to us that he didn't already fulfill himself. And so if we're going to look like Jesus, and if you know, hey, like I fully believe this, by the time we're in the casket, it's over, right? And I don't know what we can see from heaven down here. I don't know. But man, if once our body's in a casket awaiting its resurrection, our soul is in heaven and we're looking down on earth, if we could smile, I believe this, I think we would smile if the next gen won. If the next gen was winning within the church and the church was thriving and flourishing and people were loving Jesus more tomorrow than they did today. But that's only going to happen if we help them win. And the only way that we help them win is if we're present with them, if we make disciples and we go to them. We don't perch, but we pursue. And so, I'm going to ask you one more time. Are you ready to go? And at Redemption, we write a check every year to Young Life. But that doesn't bleed us. I've never like ached in my bones from writing a check. In fact, generous people are happy people. Greedy people are curmudgeons. It's just true. And every time I get to write a check, I just smile. I'm just so happy to be able to bless people. And that's for my personal life, and that's for our church as well. And when we get to write a check for Young Life, we smile over that. But you know what? It doesn't make us bleed. What does make us bleed is giving up our calendars, our schedule, and our time. It's the most important thing we have beyond money. And so, I invite you to bleed with me next Sunday, October 3rd, 4 p.m. We're going to be up here in room 1. We're going to hear what Young Life has to say. And we're going to go with them, some of us. And if we can't go, we're going to recommend people who can go. And we're going to see the next gen win. And what I want to do now is I just want to invite Jill up. And we're going to spend a few minutes in prayer. Last week, we prayed for our generation because we can't lead another generation if we don't first lead ourselves, right? Last week, we said that somebody younger than you is waiting on you to lead you so that when the time is right, you can lead them. And but this week, we're going to pray for the generation below us.